The Mar-A-Lago search warrant has been unsealed. We have it, you may have heard, and most importantly, as you see here, this is something we don't usually get. We've never gotten it for a former president, and we had no idea when the week started that we'd be going through it. A documented list of the things that Donald Trump allegedly took or stole, property of the U.S. government, and intelligence material. We're going to get into this right now. We start with what's in here. We don't start with the law, although it is the law that brought us this information. We start with the search warrants, property, and inventory list. So let's take a look. You're going to see at the top how this works. Search and seizure warrant. You see that right there? You have that on Trump's Mar-A-Lago premises, page 1 of it. Then on page 5, and if we can, we'll bring this to you in full. Can we bring that up for everybody? Do we have that ability? I want everyone to see, yes, exactly what we have. I'm telling you, this is not the kind of thing we've ever gotten before, and I'm going to walk you through what it means right now. This is the receipt for property according to the FBI. The items listed, collected/seized in that legal process from Mar-A-Lago. And now I want to break down with you some of what we're learning. This is all brand new, so let's go through it together. About 21 boxes, 2 photo binders, 1 leather-bound box of documents, 1 handwritten note. This is all new today. This was not released until Merrick Garland went forward, as you know, and called out Donald Trump, and then it began to leak, and now it's out officially unsealed. We also know that the feds on Monday took what they describe as Roger Stone's grant of clemency and some sort of information, much of this secret, so we don't have the underlying information, but what they describe for the purposes of this seized property list as information regarding the French president. Let's keep going. The FBI confiscating classified, top secret, and SCI documents. That's the type of information that must be stored in a special facility for sensitive material, often called a SCIF. We heard about that a lot in the Mueller days. And it is legally and physically protected and walled off from other top secret clearance holders. We also now know tonight 4 entries regarding top secret documents seized from Donald Trump's home, 3 entries regarding, quote, secret documents, and 3 regarding, quote, confidential documents. Now, that list of seized material runs for about 3 pages in the search warrant. All of this being tracked. We're going to leave this on the screen for a moment while I tell you, and you could tell it's a different kind of news night because I'm just going to leave this up for you to look at. Obviously, you can't read every word. What you are looking at right now is literally the receipts. You ever hear people say, well, we got receipts? Well, that's what it's legally called, receipt for property, but that's also, in a very real way, what is confronting, rebutting, and debunking not only Donald Trump, but so much of what we heard all week from some of his defenders, that this was some kind of just wild search for things that might not be there, weren't there, this and that. No. This is the fruits of the search. It's not 1 item. It's not 2 items. It is, according to the material on your screen, newly released and unsealed, a sweeping list of government property, national security information, and some of it top secret, which our experts will walk us through in a moment. Now, the warrant also says this was executed in the probe based on 3 federal laws. That's the legal authority. Now, nothing in the warrant confirms who is under investigation for that, and while people may draw their inferences, inferences are different than reporting, and I'm going to get into that in our breakdown tonight for you as well. So these laws could be violated. That's part of what is the basis for getting the material, but who violated it, the warrant doesn't purport to say. It has to do with improperly handling defense information, and the final one regarding obstruction. Joyce Vance will be here later on that. The warrant also tells us exactly where they were searching in those 20 acres of Mar-A-Lago, noting that there was, quote, the 45 office, that's the shorthand for the 45th president, all storage rooms, and all rooms or areas where those documents could be stored. Now, I wanted to show you, as we try to do around here, exactly what's in this thing. We live in the internet age, and so people can, of course, download it, but we have done our reporting to walk through some of the different details on the receipt, on the property list. But if we take a step back, before we get to the law, and I mentioned we will get to that later in the program, the receipts are the evidence. The evidence is what they found. And what they found is a lot. This is allegedly stolen property and allegedly top secret. Now, in a court case or in independent reporting, you want to get more. You don't want to just take the list. You want to go in and confirm it. But the FBI and the DOJ and the magistrate judge who oversaw this were all pursuing a single goal that apparently Donald Trump and his lawyers had resisted, first under negotiations, then under subpoena. And the goal was to get this stuff back. And the reason why the release of this appears to be blowing up in Donald Trump's face, regardless of whether crimes were committed, which is a separate entity, as I mentioned, a separate inquiry that we'll get into. But even before you get to that, they have the receipts. He had the stuff on site. He was fighting the legal subpoena. It has been quite a week, one that started with a search and then had a invocation of the Fifth Amendment right not to incriminate yourself on Donald Trump's hump day. And by Friday, we know what they were searching for and what they found. Remarkable, significant. Now let's bring in our experts, Pulitzer Prize winning columnist from the Washington Post, Eugene Robinson, and David Priess, former CIA officer who publishes on Lawfare and is the author, fittingly, of the President's Book of Secrets. David, based on your knowledge, did they find a lot of material that shouldn't be there? And how big a deal is it when you look at the classification levels invoked?
They found a lot of material, Ari. I mean, we're not just talking about a document or two. And even in your summary, it's hard to say, but I think you underestimated it because each one of those entries about confidential information, secret information, top secret information, the three levels of classification, each one of those were characterized as miscellaneous documents. So we're talking about probably dozens, maybe hundreds of different classified documents here, and including.
Let's slow down on that for your point. We've got it up on the screen, so you'll walk us through this. That's why you are here.
Absolutely.
Sir, when we see on the screen an entry or more, 3 or 4 entries of those documents, explain that to us, please.
And each one of those entries on the receipt, the entry actually says miscellaneous top secret documents or miscellaneous secret documents. So we're not talking about 4 top secret documents here. We're talking about 4 different entries of miscellaneous top secret documents. Now, that doesn't tell us everything, but it does tell us something important, that this was not one document that somehow got misplaced, and even after being reminded of it and getting a subpoena, it could not be located. We are talking about a lot of material here, including some of the most sensitive material for the national defense that the U.S. government produces. We know that just from this list here.
If you were involved in the recovery of this amount of material and you were told that somebody had been holding this for months while there was an active subpoena out for it, what would your response be about the pace of the probe if it was just a citizen?
It blows my mind how patient investigators and law enforcement have been on this matter. Listen, there are cases where people inadvertently bring home classified material when they work in the intel community, as I did. It happens sometimes. And when that happens, you immediately give up the information. Often there's a damage assessment to figure out who could have accessed that document in that limited amount of time. We're talking about August 2022. The president has been out of office for many, many months with repeated efforts to get this information. This is one of the most serious violations I've ever heard of. Now,
really?
Do we know who was responsible for covering up or possibly delaying the delivery of this material? As you said, we don't know. This material does not say who is culpable here, but on its basis, on the facts in front of us, this is a very serious violation of both the Presidential Records Act, but also each of the statutes that were used to justify the search and seizure.
And how many presidents did you serve in your role dealing with intelligence?
Well, I talked to more than I served when I wrote the President's Book of Secrets about their intelligence use, and I worked under 2 different presidencies. And honestly, it didn't cross my mind back then, Ari, that this kind of thing could happen, because presidents who got elected and saw the nature of intelligence information and the risks that men and women took to get that information to try to contribute to national security decision-making, they were very careful with this material. And I can't imagine a previous president being this cavalier with it or allowing his people to be this cavalier with it. It is truly unprecedented.
And in brief, before I bring in Gene, who has been listening intently to you like some presidents may have you ever seen anything like this?
No. The closest I've heard is a story from the Reagan administration, when a White House staffer who was so overworked that he didn't have time during the day to read the most sensitive intelligence made photocopies of the president's daily brief and took them home and stored them in his garage. The National Security Advisor found out about that and put a stop to it, and no charges were filed. That's the only comparable case to this one. But in this case, it's Mar-a-Lago. It's not a National Security Council staffer down the road from the White House.
Gene, people come to you both in your writing and here when we listen to you for your vast knowledge, having covered many administrations. This is one of those weeks and one of those nights where I'm really curious what you think about the objective facts of what we're learning about this material in the context of how many people risk their lives in the service to the United States. I'm wondering if there is a way, and I know it's hard to do, but just as they compartmentalize some of this intelligence, Gene, I'm wondering if we compartmentalize away everything that people feel about Donald Trump, good, bad, or in between, and take just this information. Imagine it was President X. Where does this fit into your view of the significance of this story as someone who we rely on to understand this national news?
Unprecedented, unthought of. I mean, every president I've ever known or watched or observed or reported on, every administration has been very extremely meticulously careful with top secret information, with classified information. Now, administrations, governments, generally speaking, classify too many things. There's a lot of stuff that they stamp, confidential or whatever on that doesn't deserve to be. But when you get to top secret, you get to top secret / SCI, that most sensitive information, that stuff doesn't lie around in a White House. It doesn't lie around in the Oval Office. It doesn't lie around anywhere, much less in the basement of Mar-a-Lago.